The 7-year-old daughter jumped into the sea after leaving a suicide note. In the suicide note, I was accused of abuse, and my father-in-law broke my legs and kicked me out of the house. 5 years later, I dragged my broken body to the beach to pay tribute, but unexpectedly ran into my deceased daughter. She was swimming and surfing with her wife and her gigolo, and they were as happy as a family. I excitedly recognized my daughter, but she thanked me for giving her the new father and all the property. That night, my wife and her pretty boy tied my hands and feet and threw me into the sea, where I drowned. When I opened my eyes again, I was transported back to the day when my daughter jumped into the sea. The story is about to begin. If you like it, remember to like and follow. You are such a beast. You actually attacked your own daughter. Are you still a human being if you forced your own daughter to death? The pain on my face woke me up quickly. Elena was standing in front of me, crying and wailing, holding her wet daughter in her arms. The suffocating feeling of drowning suddenly disappeared, and my legs became healthy again. I quickly realized that I was reborn. In my previous life, I took my daughter to the beach for vacation, but when I took a nap, my daughter disappeared. After a while, the wife cried and said that someone found her daughter's body on the beach, and there was a suicide note left at the scene. When I arrived, my daughter's face was already pale and she was lying motionless in my wife's arms, with her father-in-law standing behind her with a fierce look on his face. Before I could even take a look at my daughter, Robert knocked me to the ground with a stick. Robert beat her and scolded her. You usually beat my daughter, but now you even beat your own daughter. Mia is only 5 years old, and you had the heart to do that to her? Look, her body is covered with bruises. I don't know what kind of abuse she suffered before she died. You beast, you beat your wife and then your child. Are you still a man? He couldn't control his lower body and even had an affair in front of his own daughter. What a sin. Although I tried my best to explain, the crowd at the scene, under the guidance of Robert, continued to abuse me. In my previous life, under the condemnation of many people and the brainwashing of my wife's family, I always blamed my daughter's death on my own improper care. Out of guilt, I gave all my property to my wife for free. After being kicked out of the house by Robert, I could only make a living by begging. For 5 consecutive years, I would come to the beach to pay tribute to my daughter on her death anniversary. Until the 5th year, I saw 2 familiar figures here. That was my wife and daughter. They were happily swimming and surfing together, with a pretty boy following behind them. But when I tried to find my daughter to ask her about it, she pushed me away with a look of disgust. Where did you come from, you stinky beggar? I already have a new father. We, the 3 of us, will live well with your money. That night, my wife and her pretty boy tied my hands and feet and threw me into the sea, where I drowned. When I thought about what happened in my previous life, I could no longer suppress the anger in my heart. Now that God has given me a chance to be reborn, I will never let these scumbags get what they want. I immediately snatched the child from Elena's arms, and kept saying, Mia, you will be fine. Trust Dad. Dad has learned first aid. I put the child on the ground and after 2 rounds of CPR and artificial respiration, Mia obviously showed some response. Elena panicked immediately. The child is gone and you are still torturing her like this. Can't you just let her go quietly? You beast. I ignored her and performed another round of CPR with greater force. Elena pulled my clothes desperately and yelled anxiously, You are pulling so hard, Mia's ribs will be broken. She will be in so much pain. I took the first aid certification exam for credits in college. Believe me, I can definitely save my daughter. I said this in a tearful tone, and put even more strength into my hands. After a few seconds, Mia's head was in so much pain that a thin layer of sweat oozed out. Seeing this, I started to perform artificial respiration again. Mia's face turned red, and his wife yelled, You bastard, are you going to give Mia a concussion? What a sin. The child is dead, and you still want to treat her like this. Get up and drive. Didn't you say your daughter was dead? Would a dead person's ribs be painful if they were broken? Would they also have a concussion? Elena's face flashed with panic, and then she pointed at my nose and cursed, You are a mad dog. Your daughter was forced to death because she caught you cheating on her. Why are you pretending to be a loving father now? As soon as Elena said this, everyone started to point fingers at me. The crowd was so excited that my explanation became pale and powerless. Outnumbered, I stood up suddenly, yelled, slapped myself a few times, pointed at Elena and started to curse. It's been so long since my daughter's accident, why didn't you, as a mother, call the police or an ambulance? Your daughter is drowning, but instead of trying to save her, you throw mud at me. What on earth are you thinking, Elena? I have always been known for my good temper, but my sudden crazy behavior really scared the two of them. They stood there in a daze for a long time, stammering and unable to utter a word. Some onlookers also began to calm down and think seriously about what I said. Yes, the child has been in trouble for such a long time, why haven't we seen any ambulances or police cars yet? If this child died by jumping into the sea, how was his body fished out? It's not easy to fish someone out of the sea. I've seen a similar news story online before, where people teamed up to transfer the man's assets. Could this be the same? The aunt's words reminded me, and I immediately took out my mobile phone and opened the mobile banking app. Sure enough, all the money in the card had been transferred away. In her previous life, she transferred all the money in the bank card after her daughter got into trouble. They didn't even leave me money for food and medical treatment, forcing me to rely on begging for a living, leading an inhuman life. I held my phone out to the young people filming the video and said, "Look everyone, my child just got into trouble and my wife has already transferred all the money in the house away. Isn't this too much of a coincidence?" As soon as I said this, the crowd went wild and several young guys started speaking up for me. But Elena pointed at them and yelled, "Mind your own business. He was the one who forced my child to death. It's clearly written in the suicide note." Speaking of suicide notes, Robert held the suicide note high above his head and said confidently, "It's clearly written in my granddaughter's suicide note that this man beat his wife and children and kept mistresses outside. He is simply a beast. God damn it. You killed my granddaughter, I want you to pay for her life." I wanted to snatch the suicide note from his hand, but was stopped by two strong men behind him. The scene of being beaten in a past life came to my mind, and I couldn't help but flinch. Robert saw the fear in my heart and became even more arrogant. "You must transfer the shop you owned before marriage to Elena's name now, and then our family will forgive you." I sneered, "So they want all of me?" I kept on talking, "Dad. What do you mean by asking for the house at this time? It's been less than an hour since my daughter's accident, and Elena transferred the money away, and now you're asking for the house. I'm wondering what your intentions are. Are you using my daughter's life to cheat money?" I argued confidently, and Robert was frightened by me and stuttered, Who cheated the money? The suicide note clearly states in black and white that my granddaughter was forced to death by you." I took advantage of their guilty conscience and snatched the suicide note, carefully reading every word on it. This suicide note has at least 500 to 600 words, the ink is not dry yet, and there is no trace of modification. My daughter is only in the first grade of elementary school. How could she write so many words in such a short time? Robert was stunned. How could he know all this when he had never been to school for a day? He pointed at me and stammered for a long time, "My granddaughter is smart, can't she write fast?" At this time, several college students who were watching had already noticed something. They all leaned over to look at the suicide note and showed contempt for Robert. "Sir, your excuse is far-fetched. It takes an adult at least an hour to write an article of 500 to 600 words, not to mention a first-grade student. It is impossible for him to finish it in such a short time without any revisions." Robert raised the stick in his hand and swung it at the college student. "What the hell does this have to do with you? If you meddle in our family affairs again, I will beat you to death with this stick." He quickly broke the head of a college student and blood gushed out instantly. The crowd instantly panicked, but Robert was still swearing and extremely arrogant. At this moment, someone in the crowd shouted, "I'm calling the police." I recorded everything that happened just now, don't even think about running away. When Elena heard someone calling the police, she immediately glared at Robert. I continued to play the role of a good father and held Mia's hand tightly. No one knew that when I pinched her hard with my nails, she made slight movements. I guess the anesthetic effect was almost gone. I cried and waited for the police to arrive. But the police were late in arriving, and instead I got another uninvited guest. I turned around and saw a seductively dressed woman walking through the crowd and approaching me. "Brother Mark, even if she's pregnant with a boy, you shouldn't force your daughter to death. Isn't that a crime?" Brittany spoke in a very loud voice. As she spoke, she put her arms around my neck and leaned against me, attracting everyone's attention. I pushed her away fiercely. "Who are you? I don't even know you. Stop talking nonsense here." Brittany covered her belly lightly, her eyes full of grievance. If your wife doesn't agree to divorce, the baby in my belly and I will definitely not make things difficult for you. Brother Mark, how can you be so confused? This is against the law. She covered her face and sobbed softly. Now that things have come to this, we don't need to cover it up anymore. When the police come, you confess your crime and I will wait for you to be released from prison. When these words came out, everyone gasped. Elena even shouted, everyone heard it. This man killed his own daughter in order to continue his family line. If this isn't a beast, then what is this? Robert also came forward and kicked me in the chest, saying, my poor granddaughter, your father is so cruel. The chill spread from the soles of my feet to my entire body. All of a sudden, all the onlookers started pointing at me again, and even the college students who were there just now fell silent. Even a tiger won't eat its own cubs. You are simply not a human being. You are so cruel as to kill such a young child just to continue your family line. When will the police come? Hurry up and arrest this murderer. I didn't expect you to be this kind of man. I felt sorry for you just now. I still stood up straight and shouted at the woman who claimed to be my mistress, I don't know you. What benefits did they give you that you framed me like this? Brittany continued, Mark, we have been together for so long, don't you know who I am? How could I force you to divorce me because I am pregnant with a boy? I will always be with you with the child. Don't talk nonsense. How could I have a child with you when I don't even know you? You are framing me like this. Aren't you afraid that the police will come and arrest you later? You promised me in person that you would divorce your wife and marry me, why are you breaking your promise now? Well, since you are heartless, don't blame me for being unintentional. After the woman finished speaking, she immediately took out her cell phone and showed it to the crowd. The photo was of a man and her lying on the bed. I was topless and she was wearing revealing underwear and holding me in her arms. The resolution of the video is very low and the man's face cannot be seen at all, but the woman in the video is Brittany. I looked closely and saw that the background of the photo was the hotel where I had just taken a nap, and the time on the clock was exactly 2 hours ago. Robert also picked up the stick and swung it at me. Damn it, you wanted a boy, but you forced my granddaughter to death at such a young age, you beast. Elena also stepped forward and slapped the woman twice. The police will be here soon, you should confess everything you two have done, otherwise you two will go to jail together. Brittany immediately knelt down and begged for mercy as if triggered. Sister, I never meant to hurt anyone. After I got pregnant, Mark only told me that he would divorce you. I said I didn't want to be a stepmother, but I didn't ask Mark to kill anyone. Sister, please believe me. Brittany was in tears and her words aroused everyone's anger. Several people picked up stones and threw them at me. No matter how I explain it, no one believes me. Instead, everyone is getting more and more agitated. I looked around, feeling disheartened, and made up my mind. Since you all think I'm guilty, I can only die as a token of my guilt. I picked up my daughter and walked straight to the beach. Everyone was stunned by my sudden action and no one came to stop me. It wasn't until the water reached my thighs that they realized I was going to jump into the sea with my child. Go and stop him. The tide is rising now, he will drown soon. Elena ran towards me like crazy. Give me the baby, what on earth do you want to do? I sneered, now that my daughter is dead, I won't be living alone anymore. It's a good opportunity for me to keep my daughter company. At this time, the sea water had completely submerged my waist, and the waves were hitting my daughter's face again and again. Mia frowned. I shouted loudly, Daughter, Daddy is here to accompany you. Seeing me walking towards the deep sea, Elena started to fight with me for the child like crazy. During the argument, the daughter choked on several mouthfuls of sea water and kept waving her whole body. The daughter, who was originally limp and unconscious, finally couldn't help but thrashed in the water several times, shouting, Grandpa, save me. Save me. Ah! Mia. Veins popped out on Elena's forehead. She stood there stamping her feet and howling like a pig being slaughtered. Robert rolled his eyes and lay on the beach barking like a wild dog. My precious granddaughter. Mia had already woken up when she was in my arms, and she was trembling all over when she heard that I wanted to jump into the sea with her, but she forced herself not to make any sound. Everyone looked at what happened in astonishment and disgust in low voices. Did you see what happened just now? Was the child struggling? I heard her. She's yelling for help. What's going on? Could it be that the child is not dead at all? Robert shouted at the onlookers, "My granddaughter was lying here without breathing just now. You all saw it with your own eyes. How could she not be dead?" Elena rushed to the shore holding Mia like crazy, crying and shouting, "Mia, wake up. That's not right. Wasn't this kid just yelling for help? Why is he collapsing again now?" "Yeah, I also heard a little girl shouting for help, and she was calling for Grandpa. What is going on? Has this child been pretending all along?" Robert heard the discussion and started swinging his weapons at the crowd again. "You guys are blind. Can't you see my granddaughter can't even open her eyes? How can she stand up and shout for help?" Then he grabbed my collar and cursed, "You beast, you forced my daughter to death, and now you don't even let go of her body. People like you should go to the 18th level of hell." I looked at the fierce look on Robert's face and immediately burst into tears. God, everyone heard it. My daughter clearly shouted for help. You clearly knew that the child was not dead, why did you still frame me? Everyone immediately agreed, that's right, we all heard it. Robert's face turned red with anger, and he pointed at one of the young girls and yelled, "You bitch, if you keep talking nonsense, I'll stab you to death with a stick." Unexpectedly, the young man said even more fiercely, "This is a society ruled by law. If you dare to touch a hair on my head, I will sue you until you are bankrupt." Hearing the words "lose everything," Robert silently threw away the stick in his hand. At this time a thin girl suddenly spoke up, "I just filmed it clearly." The child stood up and shouted for help, but the child's mother pushed the child into the water, and then the child could not move again. I staggered over to the girl and watched the video from beginning to end. The girl shot the video clearly and her words hit the point. I immediately knelt down and cried, "Thank you, girl. You are such a good person. Finally someone believes what I say." Everyone saw it, right? It was the mother who pushed her daughter into the water. My poor child was killed by her own mother. At this moment, facing the accusations from others, Elena just followed my movements and repeatedly gave artificial respiration to the child, but Robert remained stubborn. I wailed and collapsed to the ground. Tears welled up in her eyes. "You are the biological grandfather of the child, and you actually teamed up with Elena to lie to me that my child was dead. You are so vicious." Robert still stood firm and pointed the finger at the girl who filmed the video. "You are Mark's other mistress, right? How long did he sleep with you before you were willing to help him fake the video? Do you think I'm afraid? I'm going to let you have a taste of my power now." He held the stick fiercely, but stumbled and fell. What sin have I committed to have such a son-in-law? He killed my granddaughter and let people beat me up. I'd rather die. Don't be afraid, my dear granddaughter. Grandpa is here to accompany you now. At this moment, the daughter who had been rescued by Elena suddenly spit out a large mouthful of sea water. The voice was weak and she cried, "Grandpa, save me, it hurts so much." This time everyone watching could see it clearly. My daughter woke up. An ambulance and police cars also arrived. I hugged my daughter and cried heartbreakingly, "Daddy's good, Mia, Daddy thought he was going to lose you." Mia slowly broke free from my embrace, not caring about the pain, and looked around anxiously, "Where is my new dad?" This sentence stunned everyone. Elena immediately covered her daughter's mouth, but it was too late. I suppressed my anger and asked, "Baby, what do you mean by that? Who is your new dad?" Mia proudly told me, "My mother said that if I acted out a scene with her, she would give me a new father who is handsome and young." Then Mia hit Elena twice in a spoiled way, "Bad mom, you told me it wouldn't hurt before the performance, but Dad pressed my ribs, and you pressed me in the water, and Grandpa didn't come to save me. Now it hurts so much, I won't act anymore." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd went wild. Parents who let such a young child risk his life to act in a play are not worthy of being human. That's right, he even forged a suicide note to trick our child into believing that he was forced to commit suicide. It turns out that this was all premeditated. They put on such a big show just to transfer the property. This kid's mother and grandfather are really scheming. Several righteous young people raised stones and threw them at Elena and Robert, but they were quickly stopped by the police. After the scene was stabilized, the doctor began to give Mia a physical examination. I saw a familiar figure among the accompanying paramedics. That was none other than Elena's pretty boy from her previous life. His name was Gavin and he was a nurse in the hospital. Although he and Elena tried their best to keep their distance, I still saw their eyes meet. Even my biological daughter Mia looked at him with such joy that she didn't even bother to cry out in pain. After the doctor's examination, Mia's limbs were fine, and there were no skin injuries, but once the lungs were touched, Mia immediately screamed. It hurts here." When I heard Mia screaming in pain, I didn't feel any emotion in my heart. Instead, I felt inexplicably happy. Although Mia is my daughter, she conspired with those people to frame me. She was always disgusted with me and had no respect for me. Considering that she is my daughter, I don't want to take revenge on her, but I also have to make her understand that if she hurts others, she must take responsibility and accept retribution. Mia choked and drank a lot of dirty water. Elena didn't know how to give first aid and pressed Mia's lungs roughly, causing damage to the lungs inside and outside. After several examinations, the doctor initially determined that this was acute lung injury. After hearing the diagnosis, I immediately slapped Elena in the face. "You vicious woman, you didn't hesitate to put the child in the water to choke him in order to throw dirty water on me. Now you see, if anything happens to the child, I will never forgive you." My words instantly aroused her guilt. She hugged her daughter tightly and said with lifeless eyes, "Impossible, I didn't do that." "You didn't? The video just now recorded it clearly, and you are still trying to make excuses." I played the video again in front of the police. With both witnesses and evidence, she no longer had any reason to make excuses. At this time, Robert immediately knelt down at the police's feet and began to cry, "Comrade police, you don't know how cruel my son-in-law is. What he said is all lies. You must not believe it. Haha, I think you're talking about yourself. You're still making trouble here even after it's come to this. You're so shameless. We can all testify to everything that just happened. This father and daughter acted out this drama together with their children in order to transfer the marital property. Yes, we have recorded the video. I can be a witness and cooperate with you to record the statement. I can, too. I can testify. I can, too. I can, too." There were many enthusiastic people rushing to serve as witnesses. As I watched this scene, I couldn't help but feel warm in my heart. I clasped my hands together and bowed deeply to the crowd. I, Mark, would like to thank you all here. Although I was framed by the mother of my child, I will never allow my child to be harmed in the slightest. If possible, I am willing to be a vegetarian for life in exchange for my daughter's safe life. My words ignited the crowd again, and more people gathered around. Seeing that there were too many people gathered at the scene, the police had to start evacuating the crowd and let us get on the ambulance and go to the hospital first. The space inside the ambulance was closed, and Gavin and I sat face to face. Although I couldn't see his expression because he was wearing a mask, he held the corners of his clothes tightly and avoided my side all the way. At this moment, I suddenly discovered that Gavin and my daughter had surprisingly similar eyebrows and eyes, and they both even had a mole at the corner of their eyes. I stopped my gaze at Elena's slightly bulging belly again. No wonder, that's how it is. Thinking back to how I was drowned in the icy sea by them in my previous life, I wished I could eat their flesh and drink their blood immediately. But on second thought, death would be too easy for them. What I want to do is make their lives worse than death. After arriving at the hospital, Mia underwent various x-rays and examinations and was officially diagnosed with acute lung injury. The child is now experiencing chest pain and shortness of breath. He needs to be hospitalized for observation for a period of time. What's even more strange is that we found a lot of sleeping pills in his body. We will report this to the police. Just then the police came to the hospital. I immediately knelt down in front of them and told them everything the doctor had said. "Police comrade, my daughter couldn't have taken so many sleeping pills on her own. Someone must have forced her to take them. She is so young. This is poisoning and murder. My poor daughter. Don't worry, we will investigate this matter thoroughly and will not let any bad guy go." Upon hearing the news, Elena and Gavin immediately looked at each other guiltily. I thanked him quickly, paid the bill and left. When I reached a deserted corner, I immediately took out my cell phone and called the anti-fraud center. In my previous life, Elena transferred all my assets today. Now that Mia's side is in a mess, she definitely can't take care of it. I have to take the initiative and get back all the money she transferred. Soon, the transferred money was recovered and my bank card was temporarily frozen, which means that no one except me could touch my money. As for the shop that Robert mentioned, it was the premarital property left to me by my parents. In my previous life, Elena suggested more than once that I sell the shop and buy a bigger house for my family, but I am not stupid. I have seen too many cases online of premarital property becoming postmarital property. I didn't expect that she would go to so much trouble to harm me just for a house. I immediately called my most trusted childhood friend, firstly to ask him to help me find a private detective to find evidence of Elena's infidelity, and secondly to ask him to take the hair of both of us for a paternity test. After doing all this, I felt a little more relaxed. I didn't go back to the ward to see my daughter, but instead went to the hospital entrance to eat a KFC meal. After all this trouble, I'm already hungry, not to mention that today is Thursday. After eating and drinking and playing 2 games, I slowly returned to the ward. There was no one in the ward except my sleeping daughter, but before I could sit down, Robert broke in with 2 policemen. "Police comrade, this man is the one who caused my granddaughter to be hospitalized. Arrest him now." The 2 policemen were confused. "Is this the murderer you mentioned? Where is the evidence? Where is the scene?" Robert was hesitant and unclear, but he still insisted, "He is the murderer. He forced his daughter to death and beat his wife. He should go to jail and leave the house with nothing." I pretended to wipe away my tears. "Dad. You also have a daughter, you should understand the feeling of a father wanting to protect his daughter. Why do you have to be so hard on me? We are a family, can't we just live a down-to-earth life? Officers, my father must be very sad to see his child in the hospital, so he is emotionally unstable and his mind is a little unclear. I apologize to you here. I am really sorry to have made you make a wasted trip." The spirit of compromise was embodied in me, but Robert still pointed at me and lectured on the quintessence of Chinese culture. The stark contrast in attitudes made the 2 policemen unable to bear it. "Uncle, how can you not be satisfied with such a good son-in-law? Everyone has to live a life of hardship. If you are more understanding, you can still live your life as usual." I immediately took over the police's words. "My wife's family always said that I was useless and didn't make money. Even my daughter looked down on me. But I didn't expect that they would join forces with my daughter to frame me for cheating and domestic violence, and even said that I forced the child to death. But everyone knows that I love my daughter the most. I give every penny I earn to my wife. I am also a person and I have feelings. How could?" At the end I just burst into tears. The 2 policemen patted my shoulders and consoled me. "We understand. This is how difficult it is for married men." Seeing the 2 policemen start to speak in my favor, Robert started to act up again. "How can you support him? He's a murderer. Take him away immediately." "Sir, we are impartial and will not take sides. You keep saying he is a murderer. You need to provide evidence. Otherwise, it is slander. Slandering someone will also lead to legal consequences." Although Robert was still unwilling, he could only watch the 2 policemen leave. After the police left, only the fierce Robert and Mia who had just woken up were left in the ward. "The child is hungry, go buy some food." Of course I ignored him and asked the nurse to arrange a high-end ward for me on the grounds of feeling unwell. He also ordered a table full of takeout for himself and played games while lying on the hospital bed. His life was as carefree as it could be. On the other hand, Mia lived in the ward closest to the toilet. The stench made it difficult for her to sleep, and she was angry with Elena all day long. Mia has been spoiled by Elena's family since she was a child. She has always been lazy and gluttonous, and she always follows other people's wishes. He acted up a lot during the time he was in the hospital. Sometimes he wanted to eat fried chicken, sometimes he wanted to listen to stories, and sometimes he wanted to eat fruit. Even though Elena and Robert tried their best to satisfy her, she was still full of complaints and swearing, which was annoying to watch. In recent days, I often see Elena at the door of the obstetrics and gynecology department. Perhaps she was also disappointed with this spoiled and rude daughter, so she was looking forward to welcoming the new life with all her heart and eyes. 2 days later, a policeman came to see me in the hospital. He said that my daughter's affairs had nothing to do with me. Elena also admitted that the suicide note was forged, but it would take some time for the specific punishment to be handed down. Hearing this, I felt a little relieved. Looking at the information my childhood friend has found, I am now only one step away from successful revenge. At this moment, Gavin suddenly knocked on the door. "Brother, it's my turn to take care of you from now on." I couldn't help but smile, it seemed like even God was helping me. Over the course of a few days, Gavin and I got along really well. He always calls me brother and still treats me like a fool who knows nothing. Until that night, I drank the glass of turbid water and began to feel hot all over. It's so hot, why is it so hot all of a sudden? I can't stand it. Gavin looked at me with a smirk on his face. Don't worry, brother, we are all men, I know, it will soon be gone. What do you mean? After he said this, he turned off the lights, pushed a woman on top of me, and then locked the door. Brother, do you remember me? I'm here to cool you down. Although I couldn't see in the dark, the smell of perfume allowed me to quickly recognize that this was the person who pretended to be a mistress on the beach that day. Who are you? Why are you pestering me? We have no grudges against each other, so why did you want to harm me that day? Why? Then you should ask your wife. I'm just doing it for money. Brother, let's have some fun. She kept leaning against me, taking off her clothes as she did so. When she was left with only her underwear, she immediately screamed, "Help, someone is trying to rape me." Elena and Robert appeared like gods and immediately kicked open the door of the ward. This time there was a helper standing behind them, Gavin, who was recording slowly with his mobile phone. Robert immediately pointed at me and yelled, "Damn it, you're having an affair with this bitch. You still say you love your wife and kids, I'm going to beat you to death today." Elena walked up and started fighting with the woman, shouting, "I'll beat you up, you little mistress, you shameless man who dared to seduce my man." The woman kept shouting, we are true love, I'm sorry, sister-in-law." Gavin, who was recording the video, also started to make sarcastic remarks, "Brother, I really misjudged you. I didn't expect you to be such a person. How could you treat your wife like this, not to mention that you even had an affair in the hospital?" Robert pointed at me and said angrily, "Divorce, we must divorce. You cheated on me and you must leave the house with nothing." I sneered at him and walked straight to the bathroom in the room. When I opened the door, I saw 2 policemen standing inside. They heard everything that happened clearly. The woman was so frightened when she saw the police that her legs went limp and she immediately shouted, I confess everything." Robert saw that the woman had changed sides in an instant, so he slapped her in the face and said, "Bitch, shut up." The policeman pinned him to the ground and motioned for the woman to continue. Robert found me and asked me to pretend to be Mark's mistress. He also said that if I didn't obey him, he would strangle my seriously ill son to death. He promised to buy me a big diamond ring after the matter was completed. Really, everything I said was true. What is your relationship with Robert? We are lovers. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere froze instantly. Robert was furious and yelled, "Don't believe her. She is a whore. She doesn't tell the truth. You old bastard, you coaxed me into doing evil and now you're throwing dirty water on me. You're a bastard, police comrades, you must not let him go. He didn't just do this one bad thing, he did a lot of bad things, I'll tell you all." The woman took out her cell phone and showed it to the police. There were many videos of Robert's evil nature in her phone, which he had sent to her to show off. The 2 policemen looked at each other and immediately handcuffed them. Seeing Robert being arrested, Elena and Gavin huddled in a corner and dared not say a word, but how could I let them go? "Wait a minute, officers. I want you to check this glass of water. I suspect it has been poisoned." As soon as these words came out, Gavin immediately panicked, "That's not poison, it's just some anesthetic drugs." Seeing him confessing, I immediately raised the corners of my mouth and smiled, "So, you admit it?" Gavin then realized that he had let the cat out of the bag, and he immediately covered his mouth, but it was too late. Seeing that he was exposed, he immediately grabbed Elena's hand, "Baby, save me, I can't be taken away. It is a serious crime for medical staff to give drugs. I can't go to jail." Everyone's eyes were focused on Elena again. She was smart and immediately shook off Gavin's hand, saying that she knew nothing about it. But Gavin insisted, "How can you be so cruel? If I go to jail, what will happen to our child? Can you bear to let the child be born without seeing his father?" I pretended to be shocked and pointed at Elena and yelled, "You actually cheated on me right under my nose and got pregnant. You are so shameless." Elena took my hand and acted innocently, "No, husband, listen to my explanation. I don't know him. He is a lunatic and he is out of his mind. He is slandering me." Gavin sneered and looked at the indifferent woman in front of him. Then she opened the nude photos of the 2 of us on her phone and showed them to me one by one. "Look, this is what she meant by not knowing me. We were together before you got married, even Mia. Before he could finish the second half of his sentence, he was interrupted by a slap from Elena. At the same time, the water inspection report came out. Sure enough, something was added inside, and Gavin was handcuffed. Before leaving, he yelled at Elena, "You vicious woman, I will never forgive you, and I will never recognize the child in your belly. You hurt the people who love you, you don't deserve to be loved, and you don't deserve to be a mother." Robert also shouted at her, "You must save me, save me." The corridor was filled with people watching the fun, and they were all pointing at Elena and scolding her for being shameless. Watching everyone walk away, Elena's legs suddenly started to tremble. She leaned against the wall and slowly squatted down, beads of sweat the size of beans dripping down her forehead. After a low howl, a stream of blood flowed down the thigh. Elena's pale face was covered with beads of sweat. She covered her lower abdomen and begged me for help, "Husband, save me, save me." Her painful look reminded me of how she looked when she gave birth to Mia. At that time, I knelt in the obstetrics corridor and swore to God again and again that I would exchange my life for the safety of mother and daughter. 10, 20 years, or even the rest of my life would be enough. But now my daughter despises me, and my wife has been lying to me from beginning to end. I am such a clown. Although I hated Elena to the core, I still called a doctor when I saw her in pain. After a series of rescue efforts, the child could not be saved and Elena also lost her fertility. Elena was in a coma for 2 days before she woke up. After waking up, she cried and made a fuss, repeating "impossible, impossible" all the time. Later, her behavior became more and more strange, and she often went to the obstetrics department to see her newborn baby in the middle of the night. The doctor suggested several times that I take her to a psychiatric department for a checkup. During the past few days of taking care of Elena, I heard from the nurses that Mia kept asking for her daddy. Mia's condition stabilized somewhat, but the disease also left her with a chronic illness. She will often feel shortness of breath and chest tightness for the rest of her life, and in severe cases she will suffocate due to lack of oxygen, which will be as painful as drowning in my previous life. Dad, you love Mia the most, right? What happened in our family had already spread throughout the hospital, and Mia must have known everything, so she started to act coquettishly and try to please me again. Seeing that I was unmoved, she continued to act coquettishly. "Daddy, Mia will dance for you, okay? Didn't you say Mia dances the best? Dad, don't be angry. Mia shouldn't have pretended to be dead and lied to you with Mom. Dad, can you please take me home? I don't want to stay in the hospital anymore." I touched her head and said with a smile, "Silly child, who is your father? Your father is in prison now." I put the parent-child report next to the bed and left. Later, I went to the beach alone and chose a conspicuous place to leave a suicide note. They taught me how to fake my death, so of course I had to put it into practice. During this time, I was preparing my application materials for graduate school admission while also asking around for news about that family. I heard that Elena was not only crazy, but also had her legs broken by someone hired by Gavin, leaving her completely disabled. Robert was accidentally beaten to death by a cellmate while causing trouble in prison. His mistress was smart. After she was released from prison, she took all of Robert's money and went abroad with the child. But later we heard that she was robbed by gangsters and stabbed to death on the street. At this time, I had successfully obtained a postgraduate offer and started a new chapter of my life in a foreign country. While studying abroad, I also met my soulmate, who is also my current wife. We got married soon and had a lovely daughter. Many years later, I accompanied my wife back to China for work. When we passed by that beach again, we were stopped by a begging mother and daughter. "Dad, it's really Dad, I'm Mia." Mia was carrying a worn-out oxygen cylinder on her back, and on the simple cart behind her was Elena, who was unconscious and unable to walk. I said with disgust, "Where did you come from, you stinky beggar? How unlucky. But since you are pitiful, I will give you this takeaway." Mia stared at me left and right, and finally walked away with the takeaway in disappointment. After a while, the daughter suddenly said in panic, "Mom, you gave the wrong bag. That bag contains garbage, and this bag contains takeout." I smiled and said, "That's right, of course I know it's garbage.